Hey guys, we're back here on Prop It Up on WagerTalk TV. Look, I was about to give out a pick on the Eagles, but our producer might not have thought I was going to do that. Cut my mic off really quick. But here we go. I'm back here talking about the Packers and the Eagles game. And look, for these games that I do and I select, I like to try and give out a pick or two from each team. And like I mentioned, a lot of times the games I select are games that I'm giving out prop picks to clients as well, except for just a couple different ones. So just kind of getting my feet wet for you guys and letting you know a couple things I'm looking at. And I always try and give out some quarterback props. And here's one that I think is just a little bit. I think I don't want to say too easy, but man, this Packers team gives up touchdowns to everybody, to every quarterback. And I know that this Philadelphia team can run the ball in, but the fact of the matter is, we're getting a 1.5 number here on Jalen Hurts, over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 105 at DraftKings. Let's talk about who the Packers have given up at least two touchdowns to. The Lions, Titans, Cowboys, Commanders, Bills. I mean, it's been, I think, 5 of 6 of their last 7 games, we have seen the Packers give up at least 2 passing touchdowns. Now, you're going to ask this Philadelphia offense to come in here and not be able to produce. I mean, I think it's going to be a very disappointing performance again from the Packers defense, which going into the season, I thought was going to be the bread and butter for them, something they're going to be able to rely on. With the lack of chemistry it seems like Rodgers has with his defense. But to me, Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing touchdowns has to be one of my favorite plays of this game. I was even looking at the team total as well for Philadelphia. I just don't really see Green Bay stopping them. So hopefully that's music to Dan's ears, and we won't get this show stopped again. But as far as the Green Bay Packers go in the receiving position, look, I try and pick one or two guys each week that I like. And this week, I'm selecting Alan Lazard. I mean, I think this number is a little bit low. And I know that the Eagles defense can kind of fly under the radar because their offense is so great. But this number at 49.5, I mean, we've seen him hit this countless times. 4 of his last five games, he's hit this. And some of them, he's flown over it with 87 yards, 76 yards, and he's getting the receptions now. I mean, the thing is with Aaron Rodgers and this offense for the Packers that they were really trying to distribute the ball. They were trying to spread things out. In a game like this, you have to go to your guy. You have to go who you're comfortable with. And what I like about Lazard is that he can catch the short pass. They'll look to him in the deep ball. And I'm just a little bit surprised by this number at 49.5. So looking at them as far as Aaron Jones go, I think that it would be one of those ones where I would look at both rushing and receiving, as he's one of those guys right now where he could kind of get those short dump offs and kind of go for a lot of yards, or he could just have a strict running game. I know we've talked about that on the show a couple of times in the past few weeks, and it seems like I'm the only one out of the three of us doing the kind of the combo bets these days. But I've really enjoyed doing those just strictly based off the fact that sometimes you see a guy just go off with one of them and not really the other, and I don't really want to be left guessing. So I would look towards that. But again, guys, this is a game that I do have quite a bit of action on for clients. You can check it out at WagerTalk. But those two props, Andy, I'm a little bit surprised by that plus 105 on Jalen Hurts over on his passing touchdowns, strictly based on the Packers' history, who they're giving up touchdowns to. And if you're going to give up 2 touchdowns to Jared Goff, I think Jalen Hurts will be able to get you too. Not that I hate Jared Goff, but it's the Lions. So
I get it. Yeah, you always want to use a guy it's like very low on the totem pole. Like, well, if this guy can get it, my God, everybody should get it. That guy just happens to be Jared Goff. I'm going to take a look at the Bengals and Titans. I don't see props that are out for this. I'm sure we're waiting on some injury news, especially in the backfield of the Bengals. But this game just boils down to the Titans have a fantastic rush defense. It's one of the best in the league, but their secondary is just awful. So I hope Joe Mixon plays. I would like to take an under on Joe Mixon rushing. If he doesn't play, it's Samaje Perine, and I think I'm probably going to take the under on his rushing. But then you look at the secondary, my gosh. So among teams who have played 10 games, the Titans have allowed the most passing yards in the league. And we saw last week that Cincinnati just leaned on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow cashed every single one of his props. He went over his completions. He went over his attempts. He went over his yards. I see no reason why you couldn't take that same approach this week. He should have a huge game. And then if he's going to have a big game, you have to look at T. Higgins, who had 9 catches last week. Tyler Boyd only had 2 catches last week, I believe, for 47 yards. I don't foresee him having that low of a game. So I think it's pretty easy here to look at T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Burrow and just say they're going to lean on them once again. I've noticed the Bengals are getting off to big starts in the first half. They've easily cleared their team total in the first half. So if you believe in trends, look towards that one. For Tennessee, but we all know about Derrick Henry. The fact is he went under last game, and Ryan Tannehill went over, way over, went over 300 yards. So I think if you're looking at Tennessee, they have DJ Reader back, the Bengals do, so their rush defense should be a little bit better. And I think Tennessee is looking more towards these teams that are just stacking the lines, and they're saying, all right, Ryan Tannehill beat us, and Ryan Tannehill has. So if you believe that Ryan Tannehill is going to do good, you've got a golden opportunity here to look at Treylon Burks over his receiving total here for a couple weeks. I think if he starts going over with consistency, the books are going to raise the line, but they don't get that aggressive. And we saw him have a huge game last week. So if you're a believer in Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee offense passing game improving, look to exploit Treylon Burks overs here for the next couple weeks, because you should get a pretty good window, especially if Cincinnati sells out to stop the run. So that's what I got for the Bengals and Titans. Again, so the lines aren't out yet for this one, but just get ready for that game. Andrew, you're looking at the Bears and the Jets. Who knows? I mean, it looks like we got Mike White as the quarterback. Justin Fields, we're obviously waiting on that one, but what do you have for the Bears and the Jets? Muted. You are muted.
Sorry about that. Look,
good.
There's no way to really I'm not trying to sound like that guy by bringing up a bet that I discussed here on the show, because I didn't even give it out to clients. But taking that Zach Wilson on Prop It Up, not to throw an interception, might have been the funniest thing to watch in person, because anybody that watched that game knows he should have thrown 4 interceptions last week. And I think that it's well deserved that he is not out there this week. Look, the guy doesn't take any accountability for his actions. He goes in the media and says, no, I didn't let down my defense whatsoever. Well, your defense allowed 3 points, and you were throwing the ball over guys' heads all game. Look, the reason why I bring that up, Elijah Moore, he's a guy I expect for a big game this week, Andy. You watch the routes that he was running. He was wide open. You read the reports this week going into this weekend's game. It sounds like they're going to be looking at him quite a bit. Look, the chemistry with Zach Wilson is just not there with him. I'm not saying I know if it's there with Mike White by any means, but it seems to me that they just kind of changed. They changed their offense as well when Zach Wilson isn't in there. And almost like hey, we're going to give you the easy passes, which he still won't make. And then you throw somebody else in there like White, and he finds receivers downfield. So I haven't seen these numbers be like widely available by any means, but he's a guy I'm definitely looking for. I will be looking at Carter as well. I feel like he wasn't utilized as much on the ground, which I think against a Bears team that don't look now is actually putting up points. I think the Jets are going to want to establish possession, establish the ground game, and kind of just try and, get a couple first downs. I mean, last week, it wasn't really pretty for them. They're punting the ball quite a bit. So that's kind of where I'd look, a little bit of the ground game for them. But Elijah Moore is someone I have a huge circle around for this week. I wanted to bring him up here on the show because it's not like he had a bad game. Sometimes receivers, they got locked up. They didn't run their routes properly. Last week was one of those weeks where I noticed at the game against the Patriots where he was open quite a bit. And then the targets he got, the ball was flying over his head. It's one of those funny things where you're handicapping from a prop perspective a game with a backup quarterback being activated, but it could be a really, really good thing for all kinds of receivers for the New York Jets. Not a good thing for Zach Wilson. Look, and I mentioned as far as the points being put up for the Bears, I'm a little bit surprised by it, but they've developed a little bit of an offense here. But I'm going to go back to old reliable. Whenever I've really played these Bears games, I'm looking at one prop and one prop only, Andy, and I'll keep it simple. It's the over on Justin Fields rushing prop. 10 of his last 13 games, he's hit it. Teams are pretty much left questioning, do you blitz and go after him? Do you stay back? He has an arm as well. Now that they're kind of building some receivers as well, they're kind of have that deep threat. But he's going to get out in the pocket. He's going to make this Jets team pay on the ground, something they haven't really experienced over the past few weeks, this Jets team, and had to really worry about. But I think he will make them pay. So 10 of the last 13, especially at this number, is a really good prop bet to make here. And those are the two ones I like in this game.
Nice. Good stuff. From Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com talking about the Bears and the Jets. Normally we break down two games, but I thought I'd do the Colts and Steelers here as I've had a pretty good read on this Colts team most of the year. We cashed a 5% last week on Paris Campbell getting over. And if I'm betting this Colts Steelers game, the first thing I'm looking at is Kenny Pickett over his rushing total. The Colts really couldn't stop Jalen Hurts. They had their moments where they were able to bottle him up, but then when all is said and done, he rushes for the game-winning touchdown. The seas just parted for him to run for that touchdown. He ends up running 16 times for 86 yards. I think Kenny Pickett can get outside and do some damage there. And then I like Pittman over his totals. We talked about how last week T. Higgins, Joe Burrow had a big week against the Steelers. I think the Colts could use a pretty similar approach. Jonathan Taylor is the only game in town in the backfield. They just don't have anybody to help him out. So his touches are going to be somewhat limited. And Pittman had a good game last week. Matt Ryan likes throwing to Pittman and to Paris Campbell. So don't be surprised if Matt Ryan airs it out a little bit, and I like Pittman to go over. But Kenny Pickett, by far, rushing is the way I would look to attack the Colts and the Steelers here. Andrew, we got a best bet coming up, but just wanted to talk a little bit about some NHL props. I've kind of found a little bit of a method that's been working. It's just a way to add a little bit to your bankroll consistently. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. So a lot of times we look at shots on goal, goalie saves. I've been looking at these guys that have a point every freaking game. And I know it's juicy. I get it. And, it's tough to release these plays that are like minus 190, but I mean, take a look at, Dahlin for Buffalo. Like, this guy has a point every single game. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm looking at today. It's like minus 186. Well, he has 3 games this season where he doesn't have a point. That means he's cashing at an astronomical rate.
Yeah. That means it shouldn't be minus 180 probably.
It means it should be minus like 280 or 380.
Yeah.
Evgeny Malkin, he didn't have a point last game, but guess what? He had one of the previous 7 games. I'll take 7-1 if I'm laying, minus 186. So I don't know. I've noticed when you lose, it's a bad feeling, but I feel like these are just pretty easy ways to add a little bit of money to your bankroll. I don't know. Am I crazy with this? Looking at some of these guys that have a point every single game.
I don't think you are. I don't think you are at all. I mean, 2 years ago at WagerTalk, for the first part of the season, I went pretty heavy doing I was parlaying them. So maybe let me know if I'm crazy for doing that, because I was taking, like, let's say Nikita Kucherov from Tampa Bay and Patrice Bergeron for Boston. They're both playing not against each other, but in big games, taking those guys each at like minus 200 to get a point, and they end up each with a goal and an assist on the night, and you cash a ticket. And it was kind of like it was taking away my risk a little bit. Of course, you obviously are adding in a 2-team parlay, but I kind of want to go back to doing some of those. And I've thought about even just doing like a little segment on YouTube on the Wager Talk channel each day of just like, here's a couple props I like, because again, the depth guys are so fun to take a look at. But to me, the depth pieces, like the third and fourth liners, they're more so like the bargain bin goal scoring props, Andy. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's going to come out of nowhere tonight, give you a plus 350 goal. But the top line, see, to me, all of that, I don't think that the odds makers account for the power play. The power play is the biggest thing for props, right? If you get on the power play, that's why I brought up the assist props last week, and I've talked about it before on the show, but I really wanted to do that segment because it's just, I mean, you look at those exact same players that you mentioned, even a guy like Malkin, who's a shoot first guy, on the power play, he's out there every time. He's on the PP1. So if they get 3 or 4 power plays in a game, chances are when they score a goal, it touched his stick at some point,
Yeah.
So it's interesting to look at because some teams are not really scoring on the power play that much, and that's why it's not worth it for betting those. But would you ever do that, or would you just stick to finding the ones with reasonable juice and just betting the singles? Because I used to just combo bet like two guys.
Yeah, it's for me. I'm just taking the one guy and just taking the one guy that hits night after night. But the thing is, you have to be consistent with it. Like you have to commit
Right.
to Malkin every single night. Like you can't just try and pick and choose because you can easily get yourself into trouble and you end up playing him, the couple nights. So I literally have a list here of some of these types of bets like Malkin and Dolan, and I mean, I don't know, Charlie McAvoy. He's got a point in 5 out of his first 6
McAvoy, yeah.
games, and
And
his
I'll tell you
prop was
what,
only
Andy, all in
minus
the power play.
126. Yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, so like you look at some of these guys that are just getting points every night, and you just have to. I've taken like 2 or 3 of them, and I'm just saying I'm playing these guys every night, like to get a point. And I just hope at the end of the month I'm going to be up, and I'll take my lumps when they lose. But for every time they lose, it feels like they're winning 5, 6, 7 in a row of these. So I haven't looked at power play. I've just stuck with points. So that's what I've done with it. So you mentioned
I was just saying the power play helps with those point props. That's all.
Oh,
Like the
absolutely.
teams that get to the power play all the time. Well, Andy, that you kind of reminded me of like that's how I feel about fading certain teams in the NBA right now against certain positions. I'm constantly betting against guards against the Golden State Warriors nonstop. I mean, it's something that I've done a lot right now. I mean, I would say that 80% of the bets that I've made in the NBA this year have been on players facing the Golden State Warriors, Andy. There's certain teams that I'm just betting against right now. It's kind of like what you're telling me with your player props, right? I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing it your style, except for in the NBA here. I'm literally just circling a couple different names. I would say Donovan Mitchell also has probably been my heavily most bet guy so far this season. Steven Adams, why not bet his rebound prop? The guy's a machine, right? There's just certain props that I've looked at in the NBA this year where why try and reinvent the wheel? Why win one with one guy one day and then not go back to him? And sometimes I feel like that. Like I know people have said to me, well, like, is Caulfield going to go over every game? I'm like, well, no, but he's gone over in like 5 of the last 6. So you might as well keep playing it. And I think it's a really good point that you make. And I think that you've taught me that, Andy, and I appreciate you for that because sometimes when you win a bet, you're like satisfied and you're like, all right, that's enough of that guy. But why? Why is that enough of that guy? Let's keep winning with that guy. In the playoffs, you really taught me that with your player props, man. You were firing on some players every game.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a good point in NBA. There are certain teams. I mean, you just look at centers are now dominating the Phoenix Suns. Point guards are dominating the Detroit Pistons and the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, and these aren't stats that are too difficult to find. But you just got to be consistent with it. And you're absolutely right about Donovan Mitchell. You just commit to playing him, week in and week out, and every once in a while he'll go under, but when he goes over, he just does it in spurts and streaks, and you all of a sudden end up cashing like 3, 4, 5 in a row.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Andy, really quick, one prop that's just the most frustrating one for me that I just regret even trying to dive into. I'm wondering if you ever bet this in the NBA. Do you bet the 3-pointers made? Because that one just makes you want to blow my brains out. That one, I can't do it, man. Whenever I bet that one, it's like the guy's been shooting the lights out, and then the game I select, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just not going to shoot tonight," or like, and it's happened to me so many times where it's just like I'm done with this prop. Like this guy sucks at shooting whenever I bet on him, so I can't do it.
I don't do it a whole lot. I know Kevin Herter has been a fantastic one. I believe he's gone under a few times, but most of the nights he's getting over his 2.5. So that's one to look at. But yes, it is frustrating. I've had a couple of those. I bet on Tyrese Halliburton to go over his points, and I was a little late getting home, so I turned it on, and the first quarter was over, and he was 0 for 6 from the field. And you're like, well, this one's over. This is dead in the water because that guy can't shoot.
Yeah.
So
Good part about the
We're gonna
NBA
get
though, you usually know when you're done. You're like, this guy's having an off night. It is what it is.
Yeah. And just to let the chat room know, first off, thank you for joining us day after Thanksgiving. Love you guys. And Andrew, we have puck time today, right? At 11 o'clock?
Yes, sir. Just Carmen and I
so
today, and he does have his 6 and 60 segment as well.
Okay, guys. So a couple of you have been asking. So yes, 11 o'clock. Andrew and Carm are going to be breaking down this massive slate of NHL. Very, very excited about it. Andrew, I'm going to get to a best bet here, but real quick, tell us what you got going on this weekend.
Yeah, once again, we've got 3 NFL plays going on Sunday. We've got a little bit of a total, some sides mixed in there as well. Jam-packed NHL slate. I am involved in some early games, so if you want my NHL action, I do have some 2%, like I mentioned, some 4% plays going later in the day and tomorrow as well. We're going to have a little bit of college basketball, a little bit of NHL, and that's about it. Of course, the props are always in action for Sunday. But I'll really low volume for me. So if you want to grab those plays, grab an all-access package, grab a 3-day pass, 7-day pass, and we'll try and cash long-term. I know Andy and I are both the same way as far as that. But if you want just to play for the day, grab it today at WagerTalk.com. I do have packages available. I'm pumped. I'm fired up for today's NHL slate. Who doesn't like hockey during the day or sports in general during the day? So I can't wait.
It's great. Grab Andrew stuff at WagerTalk.com. I will have a 5% NFL play up for Sunday. We're going to have a PFL play up for today. And, of course, we have World Cup, women's college basketball. Again, a 3-day pass or 7-day pass is the best way to go. I mean, we've been running hot in these best bets in NFL. Women's college basketball is off to a 14-2 start. World Cup is doing well. So you can grab all those and really, really add some money to the bankroll. All right, let's get to the best bet of the day. I'm in charge of this one. Let's do Latavius Murray over 63.5 yards rushing. Listen, they just had enough of Melvin Gordon and his fumbles, so they just got rid of him. And now this is Latavius Murray's job. So they're running the ball well over 20 times a game. I think Latavius Murray gets 15 plus carries, maybe more. And this Panthers team that they're playing is just in disarray. Sam Darnold is now starting at quarterback. The Panthers defense is just getting worse as the season goes on. They've given up 164.7 yards per game rushing the last 3 games. I think Murray is just going to get here by pure volume. This number seems pretty low for a guy that has the entire backfield to himself. They may promote Marlon back up. I don't expect a whole lot of touches from him, and I'm not sure if Mike Boone is going to make an appearance. But this is Latavius Murray's week to shine against a really, really bad team. I know it's hard to imagine the Denver Broncos having a lead, but if there is one team that they can't get a lead against, it's this struggling Panthers team. So look for Latavius Murray to have a nice game and to get over 63.5 rushing yards. That is our prop of the week there. So don't forget to go get Matt Joseph's 5% play at sportsmemo.com. He's got a college football team total. He cashed his 5% last week. He's number 1 in college football at Sports Memo, so grab that. Should be a really, really good weekend for the Prop It Up guys. Andrew's got some big stuff in NHL. I've got a lot of sports going, and Matt is doing great in college football. So thanks, everybody in the room, for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and we're looking forward to a very profitable weekend. Good luck, and we'll see everyone next week on Prop It Up.
Whether you are a current WagerTalk TV subscriber, a fan of the extensive amount of free betting information we release, or a client of one of our incredible lineup of handicappers at WagerTalk or Sports Memo, we thank you. Thanksgiving is a holiday loaded with traditions, and we started one of our traditions years ago. Get a 7-day all sports all access from any handicapper for just $69. That's under $10 per day and just $10 more than a 3-day all access. So whether you're traveling, have a house full of relatives, or just sitting back relaxing with an incredible week of sports, you can do so with the convenience of a 7-day pass. There is no coupon needed, and you can choose as many services as you'd like. This Thanksgiving special will be available through Cyber Monday, November 28th, all for just $69. Thank you again for being part of the WagerTalk and Sports Memo family.